In my eyes, there are few movies more deserving of a fresh coat of paint than those within the horror genre. And when it comes to remakes, reboots, and sequels, the results can be a mixed bag. But today, we're talking about one that I think really gets it right. Released nearly 30 years after the Bernard Rose original, 2021's Candyman is a continuation of the 90s saga that feels more like a modern reimagining than a direct sequel. Now, I know there are plenty of loyalists who will argue forever in favor of the first Candyman from 1992. And look, it's a classic for a reason, but for me, it's the Jordan Peele-produced, Nia DaCosta directed sequel that really takes the cake. It raises the bar on both the fear factor and sheer captivation. Let's be real though, neither movie is a perfect masterpiece. And let us not even talk about Candyman. Farewell to the Flesh, or Candyman 3. Day of the Dead. Those struggled to hit the bullseye in the darkened hearts of us horror fans. The first Candyman squanders so much of the incredible mystery it builds around its titular antagonist. It sprinkles in a smattering of cheap slasher elements that, let's be honest, just don't hold up. For a modern viewer, some of those effects come across as pretty campy in their worst moments. Tony Todd is iconic as the Candyman. Don't get me wrong, he has a commanding screen presence that is undeniable. But when you listen to it today, that famously low voice he's given feels a little garage band experiment. You know, it doesn't quite have the stuff of nightmares anymore. This latest Candyman iteration opens with a brief introduction to who the Candyman is, before launching into an opening sequence that brilliantly mirrors what we saw in the first movie, where the original pans over Chicago from a bird's eye view. This sequel starts with a vertiginously opposite perspective of that same city. We see the metropolis through this nondescript view hovering just above the streets, and we glide upside down between the skyscrapers as they blur into a misty night. It's immediately disorienting and sets a whole new tone. Another stylistic choice that separates this new film from the original are these beautiful, animated interludes that explore the Candyman's lore. They have a similar vibe to the tale of the three brothers that Hermione tells in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and they serve a similar purpose, filling in the backstory. The figures are made from these paper cutouts, kinda like South Park, but they're suspended like macabre marionettes by some unseen puppet master. It's haunting and incredibly effective. Tony Todd does reprise his role, but he strikes a much more spectral presence in this adaptation. He hovers off the ground and appears only in mirrors, which feels much more ghostly and terrifying. The new cast is fantastic. Coleman Domingo is equal parts likable and completely off-kilter, and you can just feel the tension every time he's on screen. And Yahya Abdul-Matin, his portrayal of a believable descent into madness as the plot progresses is just phenomenal. Nathan Stewart serves as the perfect comic relief, breaking the tension at just the right moments, while Kyle Kaminski and Teyonah Parris deliver solid performances in their roles. I have a real weakness for these kinds of horror films that soar in their simplicity. Think about Pet Sematary. It's fondly remembered not for some groundbreaking, complex plot, but for the visceral, gut punch scares that a pet resurrecting cemetery instills. It is so raw and direct that it is reportedly the one story Stephen King regrets even writing because it scared him so much. And Candyman taps into that same primal fear. There is something intrinsically terrifying about the idea of a presence that emerges just because we say his name 5 times in a mirror. It takes me right back to childhood sleepovers. All of us crammed into a tiny bathroom, challenging each other to say Bloody Mary 3 times. Before we'd even reach the final repetition, someone would always bolt from the room in terror, and those of us who stayed until the end, we'd become convinced that some murderous entity was now out to get us. It's a simple, universal fear. Candyman 2021 plays on that unnerving plainness just as well as the classics. But in true Jordan Peele fashion and staying true to the original film, it not devoid of political undertones. After watching projects with Jordan Peele, a tsunami on them, you might think this movie is just trying to recapture the magic that defined us in Get Out. In those first 2 horror entries of his career, he achieved the incredible feat of driving home a powerful allegory about prejudice without sacrificing any of the underlying horror. With 2021's Candyman, the horror element is undeniably present, The scares are real, but the societal commentary, it leaves some poignancy to be desired. The general atrocities of racism and police brutality are communicated, but the Candyman's exact role within this commentary gets a bit confused. In one scene, he's a representation of generational trauma, a vengeful spirit, avenging racial injustice with decisive sloshes of his hook. But then, in the next scene, he is dishing out wanton violence on anyone who just happens to say his name in the mirror a few too many times. What's the message? The net result of this prolific killer-esque, confused intentions is that the typically biting social commentary we expect struggles to fully stick its landing here. With a different director at the helm, it is evident that Nia DaCosta wanted to drive home a similar theme to Peele's prior work. But even with his oversight, the message can feel more like a shoehorned afterthought than a central premise. The climax, in particular, feels a bit too rushed for a lot of that poignancy to be properly conveyed. And that brings me to the marketing. While DaCosta is a talented director with notable titles like Little Woods and The Marvels to her name, the ad campaign for Candyman centered so heavily on the more well-known Peele name that many viewers went into theaters falsely believing it was his movie. And while there's enough of a common thread between the two directors to see similar themes at play, they are varied enough in their creative direction that fans going in expecting another Get Out might be disappointed by some of the film's safer, more standard plot decisions. So, where does that leave us? Candyman 2021 is a simple and enjoyably formulaic horror movie that, in my opinion, improves on nearly every single facet of the original. It's probably not going to rank in anyone's list of the greatest horror films of all time, and that's okay. But its cinematography, its strong acting performances, and its innovative revamping of an old story make for an atmospheric, unsettling, and refreshingly modern take on a classic Halloween trope that many of us know and love. It's a great watch, especially if you're looking for a horror movie that delivers on scares while still giving you something to think about. Thanks for sticking around to hear my thoughts on Candyman. What did you think of the movie? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content. It really helps the channel out. See you in the next one.